They didn't bother asking questions. They didn't care who he was or why he was there. The security team dragged the Joker across the airport floor like he was nothing more than a dangerous animal. Cameras flashed, passengers stared, and the world saw a madman being forced onto a plane. But no one saw the truth hiding behind his quiet smile. The moment the cabin door closed, a strange tension settled in the air. The guards were whispering, the passengers were uneasy, and the Joker simply watched them as if he already knew something they didn't. A secret, a lie, a crime buried beneath the polished surface of this airline, one he was moments away from exposing. But everything changed when the pilot stepped out of the cockpit. His hands were trembling, his eyes locked onto the Joker's, and in a voice barely above a whisper, he said something that made the entire cabin fall silent. Something that should never have been spoken aloud. Something that made the Joker's smile fade, just for a second. This wasn't a routine transport. This wasn't an arrest. This was a setup, and the wrong man had been dragged on board. Before we begin this journey into the darkness miles above the ground, make sure you subscribe to our channel, because the stories we uncover aren't just watched, they're survived. The cabin smelled of metal, recycled air, and fear, the kind that spreads silently, the way a matchstick spreads fire to dry leaves. Passengers sat stiff in their seats, pretending not to stare, pretending not to recognize the man the guards had dragged in like a prize they didn't know how to handle. The Joker sat between two security officers, wrists bound, ankles locked, face painted with fading colors that somehow made him look even more human than the men surrounding him. The pilot's sudden appearance had cracked the atmosphere open. Pilots didn't leave the cockpit during boarding, certainly not to walk toward a restrained prisoner with trembling hands. Yet here he was, stepping closer, his eyes never leaving the Joker's. The guard straightened, sensing authority, but the Joker tilted his head beneath the dim cabin lights, studying the man walking toward him like a long-lost acquaintance. "You shouldn't be here," the pilot whispered, voice so soft the engines nearly swallowed it. One of the guards raised an eyebrow. "Sir, we're following transport protocol. Orders came from—" "I know where the orders came from," the pilot cut in sharply, then shifted his gaze back to the Joker. "But they sent the wrong man." A faint smile crept across the Joker's lips, a slow, knowing curl, like someone hearing the punchline before the joke was told. "I told them," the Joker murmured, "but they don't listen to clowns anymore. Very rude, really." The guard nudged him, annoyed, but not confident enough to hit him in front of a uniformed pilot. The passengers whispered among themselves now, ripples of confusion traveling down the aisle. The plane hadn't even left the gate, and already the story unfolding on board didn't match the one the news reporters outside the terminal had been fed. The pilot exhaled shakily, then leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You're not supposed to be on Flight 97. The Joker lifted an eyebrow. "And yet, here I sit, upgraded to window seat and everything. Life is full of surprises." The pilot didn't smile. He swallowed hard, stepped back a little, and for a moment it looked like he regretted approaching at all. His hand trembled slightly as he rubbed the bridge of his nose, as if trying to erase a memory no one else could see. "Captain!" a flight attendant called from behind him, her voice tight with forced calm. "We need to prepare for takeoff." "Just a minute," he muttered, not taking his eyes off the Joker. "Just give me a minute." The Joker watched him carefully, his gaze sliding from the captain's hands to his face, then to the small gold wings pinned to his uniform. There was something broken behind the man's eyes, something the Joker recognized instantly. Loss, regret, a secret that had eaten him alive long before he stepped onto the plane. "You know," the Joker said gently, almost softly, "I can usually smell guilt. Has a very specific scent, like burnt sugar." He leaned in just slightly. "And you, Captain, you reek of it." The pilot's jaw tightened. "Stop talking." "Oh," the Joker whispered, "but we're just getting to the good part." The guards shifted uncomfortably, unsure whether they should intervene or not. They knew the Joker's reputation, his unpredictability, his ability to twist minds like wet clay. But the captain, clearly, wasn't reacting to provocation. He was reacting to recognition. The plane hummed as power shifted through its systems. Outside the oval windows, ground crew moved with routine efficiency, unaware of the tension growing inside the metal shell, preparing to lift thousands of feet above their heads. The captain stepped aside, signaling the flight attendant to proceed. But as the woman passed him, she paused, subtly glancing at the Joker, her eyes widening with something like recognition, then quickly masking it. She hurried toward the front of the plane, whispering something into the intercom that the passengers couldn't fully hear. The Joker chuckled. Oh no, she knows too. Aren't we a lovely little family reunion? Enough, the lead guard snapped. One more word and You'll what? The Joker asked softly, tilting his head again. Hit the man your boss has framed, or keep pretending you have any idea what you're involved in. The guard froze. The captain turned sharply to the guard. Framed? Who told you that? The Joker blinked slowly, then turned his gaze toward the window. You did. Silence swallowed the aisle. The captain opened his mouth, then closed it again. I never said that. You didn't have to, the Joker whispered. People always tell me things they don't say. The engines roared louder, signaling the final stages of departure. The pilot backed away, shaken, then headed toward the cockpit. The passengers watched him go, fear growing heavier than the luggage in the overhead bins. Something was wrong, deeply wrong, and the Joker, still bound, still silent, smiled as if he were the only one enjoying the show. Just as the captain reached the cockpit door, a scream erupted from row 11. Not panic, not fear. A scream of recognition. That's him! A man shouted, pointing straight at the Joker with trembling hands. That's the man they said died last week. The cabin exploded into chaos, and the Joker laughed. For a moment, the entire cabin felt suspended in time. Every breath held, every heartbeat stalled. The man in row 11 stood trembling, his finger locked toward the Joker as though pointing at a ghost. His voice cracked with disbelief as he repeated the accusation. Louder, more frantic. I saw it on the news. He died. They said he died in custody. Passengers turned, some shrinking back, others craning their necks for a closer look. The guards stiffened, panic creeping into their posture. The Joker sat impossibly still, his hands cuffed, eyes glinting with a humor that didn't match the chaos erupting around him. See? He said softly, almost tenderly. I told them being declared dead was a bit dramatic, but nobody listens to me unless I scream or blow something up. His tone was light, but the words sliced through the cabin like a blade. The guard on his right grabbed the Joker's collar. Speak again, and I swear. You swear? The Joker murmured. Oh, you poor thing. You still believe vows matter up here. The man in row 11 struggled to breathe, gripping the seat in front of him like it was the only solid thing left in his world. I remember the headline. Joker found dead in cell after failed interrogation. I remember the picture, the bruises, the blood. They even held a press conference. So how is he sitting here? The flight attendant rushed toward him, placing a hand on his shoulder. Sir, please remain calm. Calm? He shouted. You dragged a dead man onto a commercial flight. The pilot reappeared so quickly, it was clear he'd heard every word. His face had lost all color. He approached the Joker again, but this time his steps were slow, hesitant, like someone walking toward a predator they once thought they understood. This doesn't make sense, the captain whispered. The transport order, the signature, the briefing, none of it mentioned the truth, the Joker offered. They usually leave that part out. The captain's face twitched, a flash of guilt returning to his eyes. The Joker watched him closely, almost sympathetically. You knew something was off, the Joker said. You felt it. That's why you came out earlier. You smelled the lie, but didn't know where it was rotting. Why would they fake your death? The pilot muttered, to himself more than anyone. The Joker leaned back in his seat, chains clinking softly. Because it's easier to kill a clown on paper than to face what he knows in person. A ripple of unease passed through the passengers. Murmurs spread like an infection. The plane had not moved from the gate. No one had dared to begin taxiing. And now, more than ever, no one wanted to. The guard on the left radioed ground control. We need clearance to disembark. Before he could finish, a sudden thud echoed from below the aircraft. Sharp, metallic, violent. The entire cabin jolted. A few passengers gasped, clutching their armrests. The lights flickered once, then steadied. The Joker's smile curved slowly, as if greeting an old friend. "Ah, right on schedule. What was that?" the pilot demanded, his voice cracking through the tension. The Joker didn't answer. He looked toward the window, watching the tarmac workers run in hectic patterns, as if they'd heard something too. Another thud came, duller, farther away, but enough to send another ripple of panic through the passengers. The captain hurried toward the cockpit. "I'm halting this departure. Everyone stays seated." The guard tightened his grip on the Joker's restraints. "What's happening? What did you do?" "Me?" The Joker blinked innocently. "I've been sitting here like a good little corpse." The man in row 11 rose again, shaking. "This is wrong. Everything about this flight is wrong." "Sit down," a guard barked. But before the passenger could obey, the overhead speakers crackled. A distorted beep, a static-filled hiss, then a voice, thin and trembling, tried to cut through. "Captain, so you need to see this," someone said from the cockpit. "Right now." The pilot froze in the aisle. "What is it?" A beat of silence. Then, "There's someone on the runway waving us down. He's in uniform." "So?" the guard snapped. "Ground crew do that all the time." "No," the voice replied, audibly terrified. "Captain, he's waving a red flag." The cabin went dead silent. Every passenger understood enough to know what that meant. A red flag on an active runway wasn't routine. It wasn't caution. It was alarm. It was danger. It meant someone on the ground was signaling that the plane should not, under any circumstance, move. The Joker's smile widened, slow and unsettling. "Oh, I do love when the universe commits to the bit." The captain turned toward the window, eyes narrowing as he tried to see the figure outside. "Why would someone—" He didn't finish the question, because as he leaned closer, trying to identify the face of the man waving the red flag, the Joker spoke, low, intimate, like sharing a bedtime secret. "That man," he whispered, "is the reason I'm not dead." The blood drained from the pilot's face, and before anyone could react, the Joker added, "And he is not here to save me. He's here to warn you." The lights flickered again. "That the real danger isn't outside this plane." The red flag outside the window swayed violently in the wind, but the man holding it didn't move. He stood rooted to the runway, as if anchored by something heavier than fear. Inside the cabin, passengers leaned toward the glass, trying to see his face clearly. Some whispered prayers under their breath. Others simply stared, numb, waiting for someone, anyone, to explain what was happening. The pilot pressed his palm against the window, squinting. I know him," he whispered. "I swear I've seen him before." The Joker tilted his head. "Of course you have. He works for the same people who signed your orders." The captain spun around. "What does he want? Why is he signaling us?" The Joker sighed, almost disappointed. "Captain, people don't wave red flags to greet airplanes. They wave them to stop funerals." The guard beside the Joker tightened his grip on the cuffs. "Enough with the riddles." "Riddles?" the Joker echoed, smiling faintly. "My dear friend, you're the ones playing games. I'm the only one telling the truth in this flying coffin." The plane's intercom crackled again. "Captain," the co-pilot's tense voice called, "ground control is refusing to explain. They're telling us to hold position. No reason given. None." Passengers exchanged terrified glances. The air inside the cabin felt heavy, almost suffocating, as though the plane itself sensed it wasn't supposed to leave the ground. The guard leaned in until his face was inches from the Joker's. "What do you know?" The Joker's smile vanished. His voice lowered. "Enough to know that every person on this plane is in more danger if we stay silent than if we speak." The words hung in the air, thick and choking. The pilot finally tore himself away from the window. His voice trembled as he addressed the guards. "Take him to the back, away from the passengers." The Joker let out a dramatic gasp. "Oh no, the back of the plane, how terrifying!" But he didn't resist. The guards dragged him toward the rear, past rows of eyes that followed him like he was a condemned man walking to the gallows. As he passed row 11, the trembling passenger who had recognized him flinched so hard his seatbelt clicked audibly. The Joker paused just long enough to murmur, "You should have stayed quiet, you know." I'm sorry," the man stuttered. "Oh, don't apologize." The Joker replied softly. You just pointed out the plot hole. They hate that. The guards shoved him forward. The Joker stumbled, caught himself, and walked on without complaint. An odd obedience that made the guards even more nervous. At the very back of the plane, the guards forced him into a jump seat, locking the restraints tighter. The Joker exhaled slowly, closing his eyes for a moment as if centering himself. He looked strangely calm, almost serene. You're too quiet, one guard muttered. The Joker opened one eye. And you're too loud. Everyone has flaws. Before the guard could respond, the plane shuddered again, this time not from the runway but from inside. A tremor, faint but unmistakable, ran through the floor. What was that? A woman cried out from row 27. Another tremor followed, then another. The Joker's eyes brightened. Oh, there it is. There what is? The guard demanded. You're feeling footsteps, the Joker said. Heavy ones, coming from below us. That's impossible, the guard snapped. There's no one in the cargo hold. The Joker laughed quietly. That's what they told me too. Suddenly the overhead lights flickered again, twice, then steadied. Passengers screamed as a loud metallic clang echoed through the cabin, as if something struck the lower fuselage with deliberate force. The co-pilot's voice returned through the intercom, trembling now. Captain, there's movement on the lower deck. We're detecting weight, shifting. The guard swallowed hard. What kind of weight? The Joker leaned forward, his chain tugging tight. Not what? Who? The pilot turned toward the back of the cabin, eyes wide. Joker, tell me what's happening. But the Joker didn't look at him. He looked at the floor. I warned them, the Joker whispered, voice suddenly hollow. I told them that burying people doesn't make them disappear. Some crawl back up. Panic spread like wildfire. Passengers scrambled out of their seats. Flight attendants shouted for calm, but no one listened. A young man tried to rush down the aisle, only to be shoved back by a guard. The banging grew louder, deliberate, rhythmic. Boom, 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 from beneath their feet. The Joker finally looked up, meeting the captain's horrified gaze. His painted smile seemed smaller now, almost sad. They didn't fake my death because they feared me, the Joker said softly. They faked it because someone else tried to kill me, and failed. Another slam against the fuselage made the cabin shake violently. Passengers screamed. The Joker whispered, and that someone is right under your feet. As terror ripped through the plane, the metal floor let out a cracking groan. Something, or someone, was forcing its way inside. The cabin had turned into a pressure cooker of screams, gasps, and frantic breaths. Every passenger felt the vibrations through the soles of their shoes, those heavy, deliberate strikes from below the aircraft that seemed to rise up through the metal like an approaching heartbeat. Some cried, others clutched strangers' hands, and some simply stared forward as if hoping stillness would make them invisible. The guard closest to the Joker stepped back, panic replacing authority in his eyes. This is impossible. There's no way someone's down there. The Joker chuckled, though it wasn't the kind of laugh that mocked, it was the kind that mourned. You people really should stop telling yourselves what's possible. Makes the world so boring. Another thunderous slam erupted beneath them. The cabin lights flickered wildly this time, plunging them into momentary darkness before buzzing back to life. Passengers screamed again. The captain steadied himself on a seat, trying to breathe through the chaos. Joker, who is under there? Who are we dealing with? The Joker didn't immediately answer. He watched the trembling overhead lights, with a strange sadness flickering behind the paint on his face. Then he spoke softly, as though revealing a story he never wanted to remember. You all think I'm the monster, he said, but there are men in this world who don't need masks or makeup to be worse than me. Men who hide behind uniforms and titles and call themselves justice. He looked up, eyes narrowing. One of them tried to erase me. The guard swallowed hard. Why? The Joker lifted his chin. Because they needed a villain that wouldn't talk. A murmur spread down the aisle. The plane wasn't just filled with fear anymore. It was filling with doubt, suspicion. Nothing made sense, yet somehow everything did. The captain stepped closer to the Joker, desperation leaking through his voice. Tell us who's beneath this plane. The Joker's eyes softened. A man who hates me more than he hates hell itself. The cabin floor jolted upward with a violent bang, so forceful that passengers lifted slightly from their seats. Luggage rattled. A few overhead bins popped open. A child began sobbing uncontrollably. The captain shouted toward the cockpit, "We need ground security, now!" The intercom crackled, but instead of a voice, only static filled the cabin like a cold whisper. The co-pilot didn't answer. No one did. The Joker tilted his head. "You won't reach them. He knows how to cut cables." The captain stared at him, anguish growing. "Who is he?" The Joker exhaled slowly. "You people called him a hero, a correctional officer with a spotless record. Sure, always the first to volunteer, always the first to swing his baton." The captain's face paled. No, it can't be." The Joker continued, "He's the one who led the interrogation, the one who held my head underwater, the one who screamed that the world would be better without me." He looked down, and when I didn't dive fast enough, he tried to finish the job. A shiver passed through the passengers. Every assumption they'd had about the Joker, about the news, about the transport, was being dismantled piece by piece. The guard nearest him whispered, "They said you died of heart failure." The Joker smirked. "I did try to break free. My heart wasn't thrilled about the experience." A violent tearing sound cut through the cabin, sharp as ripping steel. The floor panels beneath row 23 bulged upward, bending, cracking. Passengers shrieked and scrambled away, climbing over seats to reach the front. A woman fell, and someone pulled her up just in time. The captain stared in horror. "He's trying to break into the cabin." "He won't stop," the Joker said, "not until he sees my corpse with his own eyes." The guard shook his head. "But why follow you here? Why risk everything?" The Joker's voice dropped to a whisper. "Because I'm not the only one he buried." Silence stabbed the room. The Joker's gaze drifted toward the window, toward the man outside still waving the red flag. "He ruined lives," the Joker said. "Buried inmates who never made headlines, hurt people who couldn't fight back, and he thought no one would ever find out." Another metallic crack split the air, louder this time. A portion of the floor bent upward like a rising lid. "But someone did." The captain's voice trembled. "The man outside, the one waving the flag." "Yes," the Joker answered. "He survived him too." Passengers gasped. The ground crew member, the one desperately waving them down, wasn't signaling danger from the runway. He was signaling danger inside the plane. The tearing sound intensified, and with a final metallic scream, a steel panel tore open. The cabin burst into chaos as a hand, bloodied, shaking with rage, gripped the edge of the torn metal. Passengers ran. Flight attendants screamed. The captain staggered backward. The Joker didn't move. He simply watched. A face emerged from the darkness below, bruised, furious, unhinged. The correctional officer, the man who had tried to kill him, the man who had been declared missing after the accident at the prison. His eyes burned with obsession. "You!" he growled, voice guttural. "You should have stayed dead." The Joker raised his gaze with chilling calm. "So should you." The plane trembled as the man began hauling himself through the opening, passengers scattering to either side of the aisle. And then, just as he dragged his torso into the cabin, the Joker whispered the final twist the world never saw coming. "You're not here for me, are you?" The officer froze. The Joker smiled. "You're here because someone else on this plane knows what you did." Passengers gasped, turning in all directions. And as the officer's eyes searched the crowd with sudden fear, someone in the cabin stood up. Someone he recognized. Someone he thought he had buried years ago. The story ends here, but the screams did not. In a world where truth hides beneath masks and madness wears a uniform, remember, every villain has a past, and every hero has shadows they never speak of. If you want more stories that twist reality, challenge morality, and take you into the darkest corners of the human mind, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because the next story